Hi, Bethany Clement, Elysian Properties.
And I'm Cody Touchette with the Touchette team at Caliber Home Loans.
Today is part 2 of the 5-part series in the buying process.
Last week we talked about getting ready to buy a house and getting pre-approved to buy a house. One step beyond that, also we talked about getting a TBD underwrite approval. And that's really a great step to make sure that you're ready for the next step of
buying a house.
Buying a house.
Finding that house.
Yeah, finding that house.
Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us what it takes to find a house.
Yeah, so it's a little bit more involved than a lot of people think. So in the buyer consult, often, like we talked about last week, we're going to talk about wants and needs. Well, this is where we actually put in the criteria. So I want to know, what area are you looking in? What space do you need? How many bedrooms, baths, things like this. We can plug all this information into what's called the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, or the NWMLS. Why I enter it in there, and all realtors in Washington State have access to this, I plug in your criteria right there with you so that you can see exactly what criteria is being entered. Because we're gonna play with this over the process of you buying a home. Or ideally, the first home we go look at is the one that you make an offer in, but that's not typically what happens. So we're putting in the criteria, we're seeing what the results are, and when we see the results, this is when you're gonna change what you're looking for. You may find that at the price point that we've determined that you not only are approved at, but what you feel comfortable paying at, maybe you need to have smaller bedrooms than you had initially thought, or maybe you get more space than
Sure.
you had thought.
Yeah.
And so we're playing with this criteria a lot. We're finding out how many results you have, and then I can set up an automated service that emails you the second something new comes in your criteria. Why this is great to you and why this is important is that you're going to be one of the first people to see this home that matches what you're looking for. Instead of, there are great other resources out there on the interweb of places that you can put in your numbers, and that's great. You're gonna find a couple properties and send it to me, and I'm gonna still end up looking it up in the Northwest Listing Service myself to make sure that that information is correct and to make sure it is still available. And between the two of us, we're probably going to get a list of, probably about 4 to 6 homes that you're going to want to go look at. We're going to probably look at only about 4 to 6 initially, because I make it a big point to go and preview a lot of homes. So some of the homes that you're interested in, I've either already seen or I'm aware of where it is. And so that way it shortens the amount of time that you have to spend going into home after home after home. It's exhausting. In fact, I jokingly call it house drunk. When you go into so many different homes, home after home, even with writing notes or taking pictures of some key aspects, you start getting a little bit woozy because you've seen so much. So I really try to help that process be shortened by either already seeing it myself or being aware of that home just might not fit your criteria. We should eliminate it and really go look at the ones that you're serious about. That shortens the time that you're spending and quickens the time that it gets you into the house that you really want to be in. Right. So that's sort of that finding the home process. So Cody, what's the next step after we've found that home?
Yeah. Well, that's great. And inside of that process of finding the house, we find that we're constantly running some new numbers and making changes as things go. Our initial pre-qualification or our initial pre-approval will usually include 2 things: a top cap, and then also maybe where you're comfortable, right? Mm-hmm. And so what ends up happening is, while you're out there looking for a house, you may end up finding that what you're comfortable with as far as a price point may not end up being the house that you want to live in for a long period of time. So you have that peace of mind knowing that where your actual top is, and maybe the ability to stretch and go into that next level, right? Mm-hmm. And what we find sometimes is that another $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 on a $300,000 house might make a big difference. Maybe it gets that 3rd bedroom, or it gets that garage, or a little bigger backyard. Whatever it is that maybe you're missing at $300 might be there at $330. So we're here for you. We're ready to rerun numbers, rework your pre-approval, rework your pre-approval letter, so you're actually ready to make that offer. Also, what's happening during that window of time is we're also cleaning up anything that might need to be gathered up. Maybe you've got a W-2 that you just can't find, right? And so we need to help out with the employer. I've got clients that have a tough time finding all their tax returns, right? So we need a lot of things to really have you totally dialed in and ready for a mortgage. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So we're gonna be helping find those things and helping remind you that we need those things and be in constant contact. We also, by a matter of practice, call every Thursday for every one of our pre-approved buyers to just check in and see how things are going. What are you seeing in the market? Do you need any help? Do you need any updated letters? Do you need us to rerun numbers? That sort of thing. So that process can be a little tedious for a buyer in that zone if you're not going out there and finding exactly what you want right away. So we want to be there as a resource for you. We don't want you guessing about what something might cost.
Right.
We want you to have that knowledge before you make that offer on that place.
It all comes down to confidence, doesn't it? And
Yes.
I think that while Cody and his team can play with the numbers and change things, like you're saying, I mean, $10,000 is really, I mean, essentially nothing when it comes down to a mortgage cost, right?
Yeah, great question. $10,000 is usually equated to about $50 a month in payment, right? And so if somebody comes into me and says, hey, my max pre-approval number I want to spend on a house is $1,500, and if $1,500 means a $250,000 house, sometimes an extra $100 a month gets you into the next level of house and really can make you be super duper happy with what you buy, and it only costs you another $100 a month, right? And so in our initial consult, we also talk about you can't $100 yourself into the poorhouse either, right? It's real easy to go up in that $100 increment every time. So you do need to draw a line, and we'll help you draw that line, but it also needs to feel comfortable and fit inside your family budget.
Absolutely. And just like Cody is kind of playing with some numbers with you to kind of go through an education process on both the buying side and on his side, right? Because it's an education process to find what can you afford, what do you feel comfortable affording. On the same token, as we're showing homes, and maybe we've seen 4 or 5, and they just haven't quite matched what you're looking for, we change the criteria and we have that conversation. Maybe we need to be looking a little bit further out. What does 15 minutes further out from your location look like? It's sort of an education pendulum is what I like to call it. You're starting here, you think you're going to go to here, but we might actually kind of come back and we're going to find somewhere in between that's going to really make sense, and it could make all the difference for you to find that perfect home for you. So that was the next step in the buying process, and next week I'm going to be talking about that, making an offer and the negotiations that can come when you find that perfect house, and now it's time to submit the offer.
And that's right, and after you've got that offer accepted, we'll talk about the entire loan process and where we go from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure that you watch us next week to hear about that next step.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.